Today's story is about this lucky guy named Chen Nixuan, who has 9 wives scattered across the world, while I'm here without even a girlfriend. After spending some time in dual cultivation with his first and second wives, he finally set off on the journey to find the other 7. As you can probably imagine, it's a journey full of great challenges, one that will surely show the protagonist getting stronger in the worst way possible. But before we get to the good part, let's go back to where it all began, with a girl telling the young man to go to the Gao family, wrapping some ropes around his body. The man asks his wife to be gentle, but she admits she didn't wet the whip. Chen still wanted to go to the university even without passing the test. He replies that she hit him either way, but the wife only touches her husband. Warning him it could be a fraud, she moves on to another question, asking what he would do if a girl approached him. The protagonist explains that he would take the girl to a safe place. His wife hugs him tightly, squeezing his friend down below, making the protagonist freeze in shock. He begs Su Yi to help him, otherwise he'd become a eunuch. His wife asks what he was screening for and says she was also afraid he would go to the city. The women explain that the 9th wife was in the east, and the protagonist gets excited hearing about it. He had 9 wives he had never seen before, and among them, the 9th was famous in the business world. The first wife waves her arm, freeing him from the rope, and tells him to go to the Gao family's house, because they would protect him and had a marriage contract with the family, making the protagonist even more excited to hear that. Dayu gets annoyed and asks if she would be as beautiful as the 2 of them. The protagonist tries to describe them with poetry when his wife throws another difficult question. Chen Xuan has no answer, and his wife starts counting to 1. Out of time, she takes a pill and throws it into the water, causing a massive explosion. A few days later, the protagonist was finally going to leave his village, letting all the girls in town know that he was leaving. Up in a tree, Dayu asks if her sister will really let him go, and Su Yi says he carries his destiny, and if it was sealed, then he had only just begun, because a tiger let out of a cage is unpredictable. A bullet train passes through the city while the protagonist rests, thinking about his future, until a beautiful girl walks down the aisle and catches his attention. Conveniently, she drops her lipstick and bends down in front of him. The protagonist thinks about how beautiful she is, even if not as good as his wives. But the girl looks back and sees Chen's hand in a strange gesture. She gets annoyed, saying he was a pervert and that she feed him to the dogs. Her grandfather interrupts, saying the young man didn't do anything and she should be more careful. Then he tells the boy not to worry because she's not a bad girl, just foolish, and asks if he was going to the university. The protagonist notices some signs of illness on the old man's face, just as the man starts having an attack and collapses to the floor with his granddaughter on top of him. The protagonist tells her not to touch him or he could go into shock and lose his life. The girl says he's talking nonsense and calls the cabin attendant. The old man spits blood, so the boy uses his spiritual power to push everyone back. He forms some needles around the old man and uses his energy to perform acupuncture, causing a gust of wind. After finishing the treatment, the protagonist stands up as his station has arrived. The girl asks what he had done since her grandfather wasn't breathing and warns that she would get her revenge. But the old man suddenly wakes up, realizing he had been suffering from the illness, but now feels stronger. Looking for the boy who saved his life, he tells his granddaughter to send the whole family after him to repay their benefactor. At a birthday party, several nobles are gathered. The protagonist approaches, saying he would reach the peak of life and wondering what gift he should give. Then he takes out a camellia and introduces himself. The nobles there asked how a fugitive ended up there and if he had connections with the family. None of them knew the boy of humble origins, but the protagonist wishes longevity to the old man and asks him to accept his gift. The master of the Gao family had never heard of him, so the boy explains that his master had once saved the old man. He is shocked, while his son throws the gift away and demands to know how the fugitive got in there. The young man asks if this is how the Gao family pays its debts. The old man tells him to find a seat and not cause trouble. The protagonist thinks he still has to finish the contract, so he reminds the old man of the matter. People in the crowd talk about it, while the family's daughter stands up and asks how it happened. The protagonist tries to recall the promise, but the master thinks his family is no longer the same. His granddaughter says she would never accept marrying such trash, while the protagonist waits for the master's answer. He replies that it was a joke and would simply give money, making his granddaughter write a check, and tells him to find a wife at his own level. People speak ill of the young man while he simply drops his bag. Stomping the floor hard, he causes an earthquake that breaks everything around. A man from the family manages to keep his footing, while the protagonist throws a paper at him, saying he doesn't care about money. He then throws it at the family leader, hitting the wall behind him, shaking it, and making a piece of stone fall toward the old man. The old man calls his guards, who surround the protagonist, but it's all interrupted by old John, drawing everyone's attention. The Gao family leader answers him, while the guards keep surrounding Chen. Zhang orders them to stop, saying anyone who touches his benefactor will face consequences, then thanks Dr. Chen. The family members are shocked to hear this, while the old man asks the young man for a marriage favor. No one knows how to react, and Chen replies that he will think about it, which excites the old man and angers Wushuang. Then he leads the way to his car. The protagonist tells the family leader to enjoy the rest of his sick life. His granddaughter's boyfriend says he could get any doctor in that area, watching Suan leave. In a luxury car, Zhang thanks him for saving his life and says he prepared a small gift. The protagonist remembers his master and thinks it's too expensive to accept, so he says the family can take it back. Wushuan mocks the protagonist for the price, while Jane throws the gifts away for having offended Chen. Hours later, the young man goes to a mansion and enters since the door is open. A female voice calls from behind a curtain, asking him to bring her clothes. The protagonist wonders what he should do since he doesn't want to offend the ninth master. He reflects on his master's abilities and that he shouldn't let the ninth find out, so he decides to pretend to be a woman. Chen takes the clothes to his master to buy some time, then turns to leave. The woman tells him he brought the wrong ones. The protagonist fakes a female voice to fool her and takes the new clothes. Close to leaving the house, his master comes out of the dressing room and says the back zipper isn't closed. The protagonist tries to escape, but the woman recognizes he's a man. Chen sees no choice but to kneel and let his master identify him. The master recalls her older sister's letter, but asks why the young man was watching while she changed clothes. The protagonist says it was a mistake. The woman turns and tells him not to move, throwing a knife. She orders him to prove he is her disciple and take off his pants. The young man feels embarrassed about it, but she tells him to do it quickly, so he takes everything off in front of his master. Qin feels embarrassed and tells him to put only his underwear back on. Chen is surprised when his master gets close to his thigh. The master notices the birthmark and starts touching it repeatedly. A male voice suddenly draws their attention, and the blonde man asks how Shui can do that. The protagonist wonders if he's his master's boyfriend as the man approaches angrily. The blonde tries to punch the protagonist, but it's easily blocked. His next idea is an elbow strike, which is blocked again. By bad luck, the protagonist's pants fall, making him land on the ground. On top of the man, the young man tries to explain everything that happened. Now both standing, Shui says it was a misunderstanding. The blonde hands her a letter inviting her to the Liu family's auction, where they would join forces to reach the top. However, the master's phone starts ringing. A man on the call says he has kidnapped her maid and the woman must go to the hotel. The girl tries to ask for help, but her beloved just runs away. The protagonist says that man is not trustworthy for fleeing when it matters, but his master asks her disciple to accompany her this time. An hour later, they arrive at the Paradise Hotel. The protagonist is impressed along the way until the doors to a room open, revealing a high dome. His kidnapped maid tries to stand, while a fat man beside her says it's not easy to meet Miss Qin. The protagonist recognizes two people at the table as members of the Gale family, and they recognized him as well. His master asks what his maid had done to be kidnapped. Meanwhile, the fat man says he will buy the shop for 30 million, but since it wasn't doing well, he would reduce the price to 10 million, though Shuyi refuses, saying one should never go back on their word. The man says there's nothing wrong with that, but then offers her to spend a night with him. He's met with a slap across the face, impressing everyone in the room. The fat man asks how bold she was to have hit him, but the protagonist suggests his master cancel the deal. He then tries to leave, but the fat man and his subordinates block the way, saying the boy would be staying there. The fat man threatens to destroy his entire family back in the village if he doesn't kneel and apologize, but he's met with a kick to the stomach, making him spit blood and fall into his guard's arms. The Gale family members say he's daring for doing that, and the fat man's guard, enraged, charges at the boy, but the protagonist simply dodges his attack and counters, throwing the guard to the floor. The maid praises the protagonist as the fat man orders his gang to be brought to the hotel. The protagonist asks if the fat man was really worthy of destroying his family. A gang suddenly arrives at the hotel, making the protagonist turn around. His master thinks her disciple won't be able to handle this, so she suggests leaving without her. But the protagonist tells her not to act like that, because in the past she was alone, but now no one would dare touch her. The gang members rush toward him, but Chen simply dodges their attacks. Grabbing one assassin's head, he smashes it against the floor, breaking everything. People wonder where he got that strange power. While the fat man orders them to advance, the protagonist channels his energy, forming thousands of needles around the assassins. Then he releases the power with a touch to the ground. Everyone is stunned, and the protagonist says it's now the fat man's turn. He tries to flee, but the protagonist strikes with his needles as punishment for insulting his family. After that, he kicks him in the groin for insulting his master. He then prepares to strike the fat man one last time, but his master stops him, saying it's too much and she'll handle it for now. She orders everyone to leave, while the fat man collapses on the floor beside the Gale family members. Outside, she tells her disciple that this isn't his village, and she fears she won't be able to protect him. As several cars approach, the woman hides behind a pillar. An old gangster gets angry that someone laid a hand on his son, while beside him is a man from the Small Knife Gang. If those two had come earlier, they couldn't have escaped, but now they'd better leave. The maid parks in front of them. The gang leader notices the movement, draws his sword, and slices through the pillar. Finding nothing, he moves on with the fat man, saying he spotted some stray rats. A few hours later, the protagonist finishes his bath, complaining about the first day. Then he notices his master lying on his bed, having fallen asleep from exhaustion. The boy thinks all 9 masters are skilled, so he must hurry his training because he only wants to protect her. Suddenly, his master turns and their lips meet. The boy has a sudden flash of insight, activating his power. As his master wakes, he steps back, saying it's not what she thinks, but his towel suddenly falls. The protagonist tries to explain that he was in a trance. Then he leaves the room, saying he's going to practice. Outside, he knocks his head on the ground, blaming himself for having kissed his master. But he notices his martial arts have improved since then and wonders if he should do it again. The night passes, and the next day in the city, the protagonist asks why Miss Jiang brought him to this place. Jiang thinks she should get closer to the boy because of her grandfather's request. The fat man hugs Shen, saying he's amazing, praising his courage. Since the Wu family is nothing, they keep walking around. They arrive at an area with stones, and the fat man explains it's a gambling house and that he'll show it to him today. A man bets everything he has while another wins millions, but something from behind catches the protagonist's attention. He turns and walks toward the trash, while his friends try to stop him. People in the audience ask if the young man is crazy, but the protagonist finds the stone he wanted and asks how much it costs to cut, negotiating for 1,000 coins. He asks the blacksmith to cut it, revealing a white section inside the stone. Miss Jiang says he's making a mess, while the stone keeps being cut into white pieces until the end. The protagonist takes it, thinking there must be something inside. His senses sharpen and the dragon activates. Chen strikes the stone with his hand, impressing everyone when they see an ice jade. The protagonist tries to absorb the energy from the stone, thinking it activated thanks to his ability. People around shout at him, making offers to buy the stone, but he refuses, saying he won't sell it. Then he gives it to the fat man, saying he can pay whatever he wants. Something else catches the young man's attention. He sees the blonde man from his master's house walking by with 2 girls. The protagonist wonders what he's doing there, then keeps walking. Meanwhile, a hand touches Miss Jiang's shoulder. Zhao Kui asks if she knows the young man and where he is. Outside the betting house, the young man looks for Rufeng, pressing his face to a car window, but the woman inside calls him a pervert. The fat man suddenly approaches, saying the Dagger Gang has kidnapped Miss Jiang. They also said that if he didn't come before dark, they would take her life, and the protagonist understands. Inside a warehouse, a gang member says he'll make the young lady beg like a dog. She tells the man not to touch her but is grabbed by the neck. The girl says her family would kill him and hunt him to hell if he touched her. Zhao Kui slaps her face for threatening him, and on the floor, the girl thinks the fat man should have called the Jiang family. The door of the place is smashed open, catching the gangster's attention as the protagonist enters with his defeated subordinate. He says they were looking for him. The gangster draws his sword, and the young lady warns that he's a martial artist. Zhao Kui charges to punch the protagonist. Chen moves his head, dodging the strike, making his opponent infuse energy into his fist. But the young man intercepts the blow, grabbing Zhao Kui's hand. Kui tries to draw his sword, infusing it with the same energy. However, he's blocked by Chen's fists. The young man counters with a kick to the stomach, making the gangster bleed and sending him flying. His friends suspect he's at a higher cultivation level. While kneeling, the man warns about his boss coming after him. The protagonist turns to take care of his friend, holding her in his arms, making Jiang blush. She starts complaining about him going for revenge, but the protagonist ignores her and takes her to the car. A few hours later, at a hotel where a party is happening, a subordinate approaches his boss's room. He reports the state of the Wu family's fat man and that his father wants revenge. His boss just lights a cigarette, saying he'll handle it. A noise is heard outside, while a bloodied subordinate reports the invasion. The protagonist approaches the room, holding one of the gang leader's bodies. The man recognizes Zhao Kui in his hands, saying it's a pity to die so young. 2 of his subordinates charge at the protagonist with swords, but the first has his wrist broken easily, and Chen uses his sword to block the other's attack. The boss repeats that it's interesting. The protagonist warns he'll have his revenge today, then starts slashing with the sword. Yuan Peng claps his hands, suggesting he submit to him, but the protagonist refuses just to irritate the boss. The man draws his sword from the sheath and charges at Chen. The young man simply blocks, moving his weapon. Then the boss leaps at him, their swords colliding, breaking Chen's blade. With no choice, the young man retreats, making the boss smile and unleash his power. His sword strike causes immense destruction, but it's blocked barehanded by the protagonist. He strikes the man's stomach with his knee, slamming him onto the table and making him bleed. The boss gets up and then kneels before Chen. He begs to be spared, but the protagonist turns away, warning there won't be a next time. The boy walks down the hallway and comes face to face with a purple-haired girl. Chen asks who she is, while the girl introduces herself and asks him to spend a night with her. Chen turns away, saying he's not that kind of man, but the girl chases after him, offering 1 million for a night. The protagonist accepts the deal, while the woman heads into a suit store. While looking at clothes, it seems some guards are after that woman. The purple-haired girl notices and, with no choice, decides to hide in the fitting room. She covers Chen's mouth and asks him to grab her some new clothes. The protagonist leaves the fitting room, choosing some strange outfits for her. Meanwhile, the girl changes into a maid's outfit. Chen warns that the men are coming, but the girl pushes him against the wall. She then kisses the boy, confusing the guards, who decide to leave. She steps back, saying it's fine now. Changing back into her original clothes, she says they're leaving. The protagonist imagines indecent things, but they simply head to the Liu family auction, getting out of the car. He just follows his new friend. The purple-haired girl tells him that if he likes something, she'll pay for it. Many important people are there, including members of the Gao family. Violet says the boy looks like the protagonist, while his master confirms the thought. Even Miss Jiang and her friend, the fatty, had shown up at the event. A man approaches the purple-haired girl, asking who the boy at her side is. She introduces Chen as her boyfriend, making the man give up on talking further. The protagonist feels embarrassed in front of all this. Then the young lady from the Gao family approaches, saying this man had demanded marriage with her family not long ago. Both women engage in a war of words, but are interrupted. Miss Gao's boyfriend shouts that the protagonist is just a fugitive from his country. People gather around, and Violet suggests Shuyi help. Miss Jiang steps in, saying they don't keep their word. This sparks an argument with the woman, who is irritated that he's just a fugitive. Miss Da hugs the protagonist, saying she's his girlfriend. But both the young lady from the Jiang family and Violet shout that he's their man. His master tells her disciple to come with her, but Jiang grabs his hand. Saying this was proof, she gives him a kiss on the cheek. The protagonist pulls back, saying she took advantage of him, while Miss Day holds his arm. His master tells him to go home. Miss Jiang stands in front of him, saying Chen is her family's son-in-law. Then Miss Steve holds his arm, saying he's her boyfriend. The three girls force Chen to say what he's doing there. The boy feels confused but asks his master not to be angry. He then follows her, leaving his friends behind. Miss Gao's boyfriend comes up with ideas on how to crush him. Away from the crowd, Chen meets with his master and friends. Both girls say they need to be with him, but the conversation is interrupted. Rufeng approaches and asks the young lady to talk about their partnership, but then he asks why the protagonist is here if he wasn't invited. Miss Jiang, Mr. Han, and Mrs. Day say he's important to them. This corners the blonde man, making him accept that fact. Then he tells Shuyi he wants to speak with her alone about business. The boy watches the scene, suspicious of his intentions, but the maid tells him not to cause trouble. Chen makes up an excuse, and Han decides to go along. The pair head to a room where the three business people are gathered. They watch silently as Rufeng slips something into Shuyi's wine. Then Chen opens the door, telling his master not to drink, grabbing the glass and slamming it onto the table. The blonde man stands, calling him a liar, and his master tries to defend him. Rufeng changes the subject, saying they'll deal with business later, then leaves with his secretary. The master gets angry at her student, scolding him before leaving the room. The fatty asks if they should just let him go, but the protagonist refuses, suggesting a plan, then going to his master afterward. In the bathroom, Rufeng complains about how hard it is to find a chance to give Shuyi the drink. Then he orders the maid to come over and take off his clothes. She looks upset as the blonde man starts removing his belt. The fatty films everything happening, saying now they have a big scene. 10 minutes later, the auction begins. Then the fatty approaches, calling Chen and telling him the show is ready. Rufeng starts the presentation, reminding everyone that his family was a founder of the Chamber of Commerce, and today he would announce that the highest bidder would join the chamber. The man thinks to himself that sooner or later Shuyi would be his. He then thanks everyone for their support and says he will present the new 3D product. The protagonist comments that the show is about to start as the screen shows the president's video. People begin recording it while, in the video, he admits he tried something with Shuyi. Rufeng seemed like a good person but was actually vile and shameless. The blonde man orders them to turn that off the TV, and the video ends in 10 seconds. The audience begins mocking him for it being so short, making the man even angrier. He orders the audition to be cancelled and all equipment to be taken away, while the master stands up saying she's leaving. Now in the car, the maid starts speaking ill of the blonde man, but the master only asks if he really tried to do that. She already knew of his bad intentions, but not that he would make such a dirty move. The protagonist jokes that he had to protect his master, but remembers he left Day behind with his money. A sudden light shines in the back of the car. Chen yells for the maid to be careful, but she turns the wheel in fear. A car accident happens, involving two vehicles. The maid looks back asking if everyone is okay, but she sees the protagonist holding his master to protect her. The young man asks if his master is alright as the maid yells at him to look forward. Rufeng rushes toward the protagonist, complaining that he ruined his life and reputation. The maid shouts that he tried to force Shuyi, but the man begins humiliating her. The protagonist thinks about how much he wants to hit him, but Shuyi only says she was too naive. Realizing that he saw her as a small ant, she orders her disciple to take his life. Chen agrees as the blonde man begins channeling energy and charges at him. His punch is simply blocked by the protagonist's hand. Then Rufeng tries another attack, but once again fails, receiving only a punch, then a knee strike that sends him to the ground. The young man grabs him by the shirt, ready to deliver the final blow. But the wind suddenly stirs violently. A hooded man appears behind Chen with an attack that the protagonist mirrors. Both are forced to retreat by the impact, while the man takes Rufeng's body. Chen thinks he got hurt and that this guy had some skill. While the maid approaches, his master begins to wonder if he could be Sun Wuji, the Sword King. In a house by the river, the man approaches to report to his father. Jiang listens while pouring tea into his cup. He thinks that until now the sword demon had never lost a fight, and if he really attacks the young warrior, he could be in great danger. The old man tells him not to be redundant, but wants to know why Wu Mubai got involved and if he should meet him. The young lady enters the room complaining that she ran into Chen at the auction. He was accompanied by 2 girls, and his master took him away. Jiang asks how that woman got close to him, since her history is not so simple, and she's a divine figure in the capital. Elsewhere, Shui kneels to pay respect to the prince. She says she has already met the young man and this time wants to apologize to him. Since she shouldn't have refused the marriage and now understands that Chen is someone trustworthy, she will accept her fate. The prince asks if she has solved the trouble caused recently. Then the young woman stands up, saying she wants to reclaim her property and help her disciple. The prince tells her to do as she wishes, while she steps away. He warns Shu Yi not to let him be disappointed. When she leaves, the prince tells a woman named Seven that he would like to meet Chen. The woman agrees with the prince, saying she will go ahead. The next day, Chen wakes up and heads to the car, finding Fatty Han. He opens the door as his friend says he looks distracted, but the young man explains that his master is away for a few days. His friend tells him to worry about his own matters first, since today won't be easy, and they drive to a place where a crowd has gathered. The tournament was about to take place in the city, and the locals awaited the Wu family. Then that man arrives, walking like a gangster, while people ask about Master Lin. The old man thinks he hadn't been called until a dagger hits the ground. It brings a man named Lin Zai through teleportation, and the people nearby greet him. People gather there, commenting that the boy wouldn't dare go there. But Han Chong suddenly arrives in the car, passing right in front of the gangster. The fatty gets out of the car with the boy, who complains that he doesn't know how to drive. But the boy wipes his mouth, saying everyone should come to him. The fatty warns that the idiot in leather clothes is the leader and that he should be careful. Chen gets ready, saying they were bold, but the shadow of Lin at his back says he will deal with him, and that he would stand against him if he fought the Wu family. The protagonist replies that they should face each other, and if he wins, the Wu family must bow to him. The man draws his sword and agrees to charge, saying that if he wins, Chen will give his life. That flurry of strikes is blocked by the boy, who thinks this guy is at the peak of the Ju Yuan realm. The crowd watches, not believing in the boy's victory. Meanwhile, Chen steps back, as it's the first time he's met a worthy martial artist. He channels energy into his hand, becoming a bit more serious with the dragon. Lin charges at him with his sword, trying to slash, but Chen simply dodges by ducking. Then he moves toward him, saying only his masters may try to teach him. The strike shatters the general's core and sends him crashing hard to the ground. That gangster from the Wu family asks who the hell he is. Lin warns that Master Wu won't let him go for destroying his cultivation, but Chen steps on his head, saying that the Wu Lao dog has been defeated and that per the agreement, Chen is now the greatest in the East. The old man becomes enraged, while the boy orders everyone to kneel. Wu Lao shouts that he can't take his family's position, and the others there agree. The protagonist's phone rings, and he answers his 9th master. So Yi says she's heard everything about him, and that those who messed with them must pay. The maid says she has all the acquisition contracts for the properties. One of Wu's men runs to tell him they've bought all his industries, and that the buyer is Qin Su Yi. Wu is stunned and begins to collapse, but Chen says that now he has both power and money. The members of the Gao family shout for the boy not to be arrogant because he's no better than their master. But the boy grabs his neck, warning he's not afraid. Releasing Master Wu almost lifeless, the crowd flees, saying the protagonist is terrifying. Chen turns toward Miss Gao's boyfriend. The boy slowly approaches and slaps him across the face several times with full force. People murmur that he's taken the life of Yonjiu. Wanping drops his sword, and his men ask what to do. But the leader just beats his subordinates, until Chen calls him, asking if he will truly follow him without trying to betray him. The man confirms, and the protagonist orders him to gather his men and let no one leave. People wonder who this guy is, that even the gang's master obeys him. Chen simply orders everyone to kneel, and they obey, admiring the protagonist. The boy says he will spare their lives, and everyone is allowed to harm the Gao family. Then he leaves, coming face to face with police officers, telling the two to stay still because he's received reports. The bald officer says he's from the Secret Service, so Han punches him repeatedly in the face. The bald man gets angry, but a colleague says he's the governor's son, which makes him kneel, while the pair walk away together to a bar. Han comments that he should ask his father for help if Lin makes a move, but the protagonist says he knows someone strong in Jiangdong, until a man tries to hit them. pretending to be hurt, and Chen tries to help him, but the man soon sits at their table. After eating their food, the boys ask for compensation, and the beggar offers a wine. Upon drinking it, the protagonist's dragon technique is automatically activated. The boy asks how he can have such a good drink, but the man refuses to say who made it. Elsewhere, Lin asks Master Wu to avenge him, while the old man says he should destroy that bastard, but he fears he's no match for him until someone arrives at the gate calling Wu Mubai. It's Zhang Lao, reminding him that his rival was messing with a young man after coming out of seclusion. The fatty says he's lost all his money because the beggar eats too much. Then the man introduces himself as Baimei. Chen asks where he got the wine, but the man explains that it's made by him, is exclusive, but there's a way for him to get it. The protagonist thinks about how strange this was while the fat man tries to offer money, but he refuses, until the young man grabs Baimeng's hand, saying he would make a deal. Suddenly, the fat man's phone rings, and news comes that Zhang Leo is injured. The old man is in bed while a doctor says he should prepare for a funeral soon. The young lady steps forward toward the doctor, telling him not to speak nonsense, and that her father shouldn't believe them. The fat man suddenly opens the door, while the young lady asks about the doctor. Chen steps forward, saying he is the doctor. He checks the old man's pulse and says his injuries are from a fight of a higher level. The young lady's father says they were caused by Wu, and that he didn't expect the old man to attack him from behind. Chen thinks Jian got hurt because of him, while Wusheng begs him to save her grandfather. The young man tells her not to cry as he will accept the favor, but the old man can be saved. He then orders everyone to leave the room. Chen tells the fat man to lift John. Preparing his energy, the young man throws the spiritual needle. After a few minutes, the young man leaves the room, saying the old man is fine, and everyone rushes to see him, only to find him not breathing. Chen tells them not to worry, and then the old man wakes up, hugging his granddaughter. The protagonist says he needs to recover, and Zhang thanks him for the treatment. As he turns to leave, the old man says Mubai sent his war team to kill him, and he should be careful. Baimeng asks where he will sleep with his friends, while Wusheng approaches, calling for Chen. She thanks him for saving her grandfather and kisses the protagonist on the lips before going home. Chen goes with Baimeng to his house but tells him to be careful with what he says. They find the purple-haired girl with his master inside. Baimeng falls in love and introduces himself to the master, while Di tries to provoke him. Qin says they are there to discuss business, and the purple-haired girl replies that she wants 70%. The master offers 50, and Di agrees with 3 conditions this time. Qin says it doesn't involve her disciple, but the protagonist interrupts, accepting the offer. Di walks out, saying she has things to settle with him. Leaving the 3 in the house, the master goes outside with Chen, saying he defended her even though they were strangers just a few days ago. The protagonist says he grew up without parents and was raised by his masters, who are his family. Qin apologizes and asks if he knows why he should come to the university, but the young man says no. She explains that his destiny has begun and he should prepare, resting for a while. Chen reflects that there was something strange about his master, until he suddenly feels a sinister energy aimed at him. The protagonist leaves the terrace, noticing there are 5 specialists, and the worst one is the owner of the aura. The assassins finalize their plan and leave the place, while Chen follows them. The young man defeats the assassins one by one with his incredible skills, then goes after the 3rd. He thinks he should increase his master's security, until he notices a sniper in a tree. The man tries to shoot, but Chen appears behind him, striking his head and finishing him. On the ground, he finds a plaque with Mubai's name, then goes after the last one. But he finds the assassin already dead on the ground, with a toothpick in his head. He wonders who could have the skill to kill the assassin without leaving any trace. A few days later, Chen is walking through the university when his ear is grabbed by his master. She asks if the bodies at the house were Mubai's men, and Chen confirms, saying someone was protecting them. Qin explains that only they and Baimeng were in the house, but the protagonist dismisses it. The alarm tells the newcomers to go to the room, and the master says goodbye to Chen. In the classroom, the guys recognize the protagonist and are very friendly, until a teacher arrives, introducing himself, and says they will have a week of military training with instructor Shen. The students wonder where she is until they notice a girl in military clothing. Shen stands up, saying she overslept, then goes to the desk and looks at Chen. She says the school has prepared 7 days of military training to make them stronger, but she is strict. Chen thinks he already has a good body and can handle Mubai, so he asks if he can skip the training. Professor Li asks why, while the young man makes up a lie. Shen steps forward, saying he can't since he will be the cadet's captain and must come with her for a moment, taking the protagonist to the infirmary. Shen says she knows a bit about medicine and wants to take care of his injury, preparing a huge needle. She pulls down the boy's pants, trying to stick the needle in, but Chen dodges. The instructor aims for his neck, but the protagonist dodges and pins the instructor beneath him. Thinking about how beautiful she is, the boy says he'll satisfy her since she wants to take his clothes off. But the teacher slaps his face, leaves, and says he'll get a lesson. Outside on the training field, The students gossip that they could go to the infirmary to rest, but the protagonist refuses. The boy tells them to stop talking and line up, and Shen adds that they should run 10 laps there. He starts guiding his classmates to get ready for the run. The entry time ends, and the instructor asks where the other 27 from his team are, but Chen doesn't know. The instructor says that as captain, he'll be punished, and when the boy complains, she doubles the penalty. People think Chen has no luck, while the boy starts running. 20 minutes later, he reports he's finished the run, surprising his peers. The instructor praises his performance and says they should do 50 push-ups, something easy for the protagonist. She then says he'll have a special training now and must do 300 push-ups, and the boy tries to protest. Failing to negotiate, he starts the exercise, until Shin gets on top of him, telling him to start now. The protagonist challenges her for punishing him without reason, and the teacher tells him to hurry up. He begins the push-ups, and after a few minutes, finally finishes the 300. Chen says the instructor should accept his challenge, but Shen tells him to get past instructor Kwon first. The man says he won't get through, charging with a punch, but the protagonist blocks it. An explosion shakes the fight area, and the instructor follows with a kick that Chen easily dodges. He moves behind the instructor, ready to deliver the final blow, but the female instructor blocks it. The boy steps back, thinking about her strength as the woman gathers her lightning energy and charges. Chen feels the threat, releasing his own energy and forming a palm against her. The instructor raises her finger, firing a lightning bolt to break the palm, while Chen forms an energy sword, going at her for a direct energy clash. After a great impact, the instructor asks if he wants to challenge her like this, and the boy charges again, striking her leg with dirty moves, and while the teacher dodges, he grabs her. He hits the teacher repeatedly in front of the others, enraging her. She tries to break free, but the protagonist asks her to promise not to hit him, then lets her drop to the ground. The woman tries to slap him after being released, and the boy reminds her of the promise. She orders the officer to capture him for corporal punishment, and the guards restrain Chen. The boy says he can't trust people like her, while the instructor hits the bars with a belt, telling him to cooperate. Chen shouts that the instructor is hitting him, so his classmates try to stop her. The instructor says he's clever and will let it go this time, but he'll pay for it later. The boy thanks his friends and says he'll buy dinner, until his master suddenly calls him. She explains that Mu Bai entered the Eastern Tomb and that the target is him, so the boy leaves his friends, saying he has something to do. Outside the university, Wanpei meets his master, saying Shuyi showed no mercy to the Liu family. Chen walks away, saying this has moved his schedule forward. An hour later, he walks through the city alleys, saying the Dagger Club did a good job, and it's time for them to show themselves. Some assassins charge at him, surrounding the boy with dozens of armed people. One of them says Mu Bai ordered his death, but the boy says he's not interested. The man gets irritated, ordering his men to charge and cut him to pieces. At the mansion, Violet says they've already taken control of the Liu family market and will be destroyed. Until noises are heard in the mansion, it's Shen who has broken in. She calls for Qin, who recognizes her as the seventh master. The instructor says she's done well these years, and Qin asks if she's come to fight. Shen confirms, saying she'll take her to a good show now. The assassins rush at the boy, but he imbues his hand with energy, defeating everyone in his way. Chen advances toward them, where the assassins try to cut him, but he simply returns the damage. The leader of the assassins thinks about the boy's abilities as he stands face to face with him. Chen points his sword, asking where Mu Bai is, while the man steps forward saying he would only tell him over his dead body. The protagonist grabs the sword with his hand, leaving the man in disbelief. Then the young man kicks the assassin and leaps from the ground with his full energy, cutting the man down. Almost lifeless, the man says he was messing with his master and was only waiting to lose his life. But Chen slashes him again, destroying 300 members of the martial warriors. Shen comments that he is good, while Qin feels dizzy, and the seventh says this is his path for the future. She is sure she will have to adapt to many things, while Qin questions how many people are after him. The woman says there are people who have been waiting for 18 years, and that his future will be glorious. A distant figure watches, thinking it is interesting that the Sword King moved to stop the young man. Meanwhile, Chen picks up his sword and points it at him, calling for a fight. Elsewhere, the first and second sons of the Zhang family comment that the old man was full of tricks and was at the realm of the Celestial King. Then the second orders his subordinates to prepare and protect Chen immediately. The seventh master says that old man is a good opponent as Wuji arrives. The Sword King charges with a kick, but only breaks the ground beneath him. Chen calls him an old dog, enraging the man, who summons his sword. The strike goes toward Chen, who does the same with his energy, resulting in multiple impacts. Both step back, and Wuji says he is a foolish genius to think he is his opponent. But the protagonist prepares a yellow energy strike, channeling a dragon into his sword. The Zhang family sons say that strike could cut mountains and rivers. Wuji tries to resist at first, using hundreds of swords against the dragon. A massive explosion occurs, leaving Wuji injured, while Chen charges again. The old man throws his thunder sword to stop the young man, but Chen's strike has already landed. Chen approaches the Sword King as he begs for his life. The young man simply cuts the Sword King in half, leaving the Jiang brothers in disbelief. His masters comment that he has met their expectations. When Kunping and the Fat Man approach, they step over corpses, and Chen says they belong to Wu Mubai and Sun Wuji's group. Kunping thanks him for surrendering quickly, while the protagonist tells him to clean up the place. The Fat Man asks if he can visit his father with his friend to try to save the old man, and after a brief discussion, Chen agrees. An hour later, the helicopter arrives at the location, and the Fat Man says he will guide his friend to the meeting. Some doctors comment that the young lady was unconscious and cold as ice, but the nurse who came with the protagonist argues against it. The doctors say she has no merit, and the governor says that if she hadn't stopped them from speaking nonsense, he would have himself. Then he asks her plan, but the girl has none. The protagonist then arrives in the room, and the governor asks if he is the miracle doctor. The Fat Man confirms the information and introduces his friend. Some doctors question the protagonist's skills, and Han defends his friend. Chen says he just wants to take a look, and the governor asks if he is sure. Dr. Liu explains the patient's situation, and the young man tells them to use acupuncture to control the blood flow. Both doctors shout that it is a taboo method, but the governor stands and tells the young man to come with him. They arrive at Miss Wang Fu's room, her face covered with a mask. Chen quickly identifies it as a frigid jade body and says he needs to seal the points. A doctor interrupts him, saying it is a taboo method, introducing himself as the divine Dr. Zhu. The man reminds him not to practice that art as it could cost a life, and the governor tells them both to leave. Han looks worried and apologizes to his friend, but Chen only says he is hungry. During his meal, the young man comments that if they follow his method, the girl can be saved. Then someone kicks the door open, introducing himself as young Master Long Xiao. Han stands up angrily and says his brother is Master Chen. Xiao only gets excited to meet his fame and says he should kneel, but an onion is shoved into his mouth before he can finish speaking. Chen complains about his dirty mouth as Xiao steps toward him complaining. The protagonist simply throws a bowl with a fork, hitting the young master's thigh. His subordinates say the protagonist is courting death, but Han calls them idiots. Chen reminds his brother to eat first since he'll deal with the idiots. Outside, the governor complains that half an hour has already passed, and Huang tries to argue that Master Zhu is talented. But the old man suddenly gets out of bed, looking for the young man, saying only he can save her. Outside, the boys walk in search of Xiao's brother. He approaches with his group, and when his brother comes to his side, the eldest son points his finger, charging it with energy. However, the protagonist asks if his father likes Mary Sue dramas. Dragon gets irritated and orders his men to bring his ancestral sword, making the people around comment on it. But the sword ends up in Chen's hands, and he accidentally breaks it. The hare gets angry after his artifact is broken and charges at the boy with a kick. Chen blocks easily, forcing Dragon to retreat, while Xiao calls the Liu team. The boy provokes the hare, making him attack with his cutting key, but it is easily blocked by Chen, who breaks it and pushes him back. Han says the two should back off until police arrive at the scene, and Xiao runs toward them. The hare explains the situation, and director Liu says he will take the life of anyone who resists. Unbothered, the fatty tells him to take off his uniform, and enraged, Liu orders his guards to kill them both. The governor stops them from touching his son, while Liu threatens the governor, until he realizes who he is. Liu tries to say it's a misunderstanding, but the governor slaps him in the face. On his knees, the director says he didn't know it was his son. Meanwhile, Han tells the Long brothers not to mess with his brother. Dragon thinks Wan Shan is like a local emperor, and that it's bad news. Han asks what to do with these two, and the boy says it doesn't need to be much. Wan Shan replies that Dr. Chen is generous and should be paid 30 million for emotional damage. Xiao shouts that it's extortion, but his brother says he'll handle it. Minister Huang approaches behind Wan Shan, complaining about his small mind, saying the minimum should be 1 billion. Wang Lu goes to Chen, apologizing for the poor attitude. While the two brothers regret messing with powerful people, the protagonist shakes the minister's hand, and the minister asks him to return to the hospital. Wan Shan orders the two brothers to prepare compensation and the former director Liu to get ready for prison. Inside the hospital, the doctors wonder what the boy is capable of, and if it would be a waste. Chen appears and says that if he cures the young lady, they must call him Grand Master and give him the title of leader of the doctors. Both men agree, and the boy calls Miss Liu, saying he'll need someone. He tells the two to use this recipe to make a medicinal soup and bring it to the room. Wan Shan orders the two to obey him. Meanwhile, Minister Huang holds Chen's hand, begging him to save her. Inside the room, the boy notices the old man looks exhausted. He asks if Chen knows how to reverse the blood, then leaves, warning the protagonist not to do anything wrong. Liu asks what she should do, and the boy tells her to help with tasks and hand him needles. He asks her to put the girl in the bathtub, thinking he won't let her have that fate. Liu says it's ready as the boy takes off his clothes and gets into the tub. He says this is the reason she's here and asks for the needle. The boy imbues a cloth with his energy and throws it onto Miss Huang. Dr. Liu is surprised that the temperature is going down, while the boy reflects that she's survived long enough to change her fate. Sealing the girl's acupuncture points, he stands up, saying that 10 minutes in the bath will leave her in good condition. But Huang grabs his leg, saying it's very comfortable. The minister says it's been a long time and wants to know about his sister, while Wanchen tries to calm him. Chen suddenly leaves the room, and Huang asks about his sister. The doctors say he must have failed, but Chen denies it, saying he succeeded. Dr. Liu comes out of the room with the young lady, leaving everyone shocked that she's recovered. Chen tries to slip away quietly, while Zhu examines her condition, but the girl says her husband cured all the pain she had. The minister is surprised, and she asks where her husband is. Her brother says she doesn't have a husband, but the girl says they bathe together, and now she has to marry him. Han says his brother is in trouble, and Chen explains his situation to them, while the others comment on how lucky he is for having done that. Wang gets up from his chair and goes to Chen, apologizing for doubting his skills. The young man pushes her away, telling the minister that she should rest. So the minister orders Dr. Liu to take care of her, and Han jokes that he is now a Huang. Chen calls the two doctors over and says that he now holds the position of doctor in Zhangzhou. Both apologize for having offended him, and the minister thanks him for saving his sister. He asks if he is free at night, but the young man tries to leave immediately. Dr. Zhu asks the young doctor to come to Zhangzhou for the event next month. The young man tries to leave at once, while Han asks what happened. He remembers everything that occurred and feels embarrassed about it. Meanwhile, Dr. Liu thinks he is just a good boy. The next day, his friends ask where Chen was the night before, and the girls show up infatuated with him, causing a commotion with the boy in the center. His friends feel jealous of it, while Shin spots her student there, irritated by his fun. She tells the girls to get out of her way and orders Chen to hand over his gifts. Chen tries to refuse for a few moments, but the teacher threatens to use her methods, making him hand them over easily. She warns she will make him feel pain if it happens again and says he must be ready to leave tomorrow, since she will take Chen to a training program for talents and he will join the Ministry of Reinforcement. The young man asks how big the salary will be, and his instructor complains that he only thinks about that sort of thing. Chen thinks about the extent of his power, and Shen says he won't need the military training if he passes. So they both leave to rest, and on the way, Chen thinks she's a good person. At his house, Baiming greets his young master, saying that Qin gave him a good life and was extremely beautiful. Chen tells him not to speak nonsense about his master. The old man asks about his secret master. Chen reflects that he has never spoken about it, but the old man interrupts his thoughts, saying he will understand later. Chen finally meets with his master, who asks about his classes. He replies that he will be going far away tomorrow and wanted to inform her about the training. Qin thought Shen was pretty, even though she wasn't her student's type, but since she took care of him, Chen should listen carefully. The next day, a helicopter lands as the teacher explains about the 5 legions joining together this time, and everything would be overseen by the minister, with only 3 passing. Chen simply asks where they are going. She says that to prevent attacks, the construction is in the mountains and they must head out quickly. But some idiots call Instructor Shen to their room. The instructor just ignores them, showing the place to her student, until Su Cheng warns that it is dangerous there. Chen thinks he also seems like a candidate. Su says many want to go there, but there are places they can't go without authority like his. Instructor Shen tells him to get lost. Her friends comment that she is foolish and Su is a prince, which angers Shen, but the protagonist puts his hand on her waist and says he will take care of his girlfriend. Because he doesn't know any prince from the Su family, he only sees a pervert. Then he turns, telling them not to spy on him. The young master Su gets angry, telling him to go to hell. Farther away, the teacher tells him to stop, and the young man tries to provoke her, getting his wrist broken. He complains that it hurts, while a car approaches and a girl steps out. Shen recognizes her and introduces her as leader Exia, and the young man greets her, but Xeta says the spy from the Sun Kingdom has escaped, and they must capture him before he gets away. The teacher says that Chen will come with her for the initial drill. Half an hour later, in the helicopter, Xia says Gu is positioned there. Shen orders her student to follow the divine team and not get involved, then jumps from the helicopter with Xia. Chen is impressed she can do that, while the helicopter tells everyone to jump. So the young man does the same as the soldiers, but wonders where he is. However, he continues alone, trusting his tracking skills, until he hears a noise to his right and turns quickly. Spotting a man fleeing, Chen starts chasing him, while the man draws his sword and attacks. The protagonist feels the pressure of the strike and fears for his life. He retreats, thinking about the strength of that man. Meanwhile, the spy envies energy into his sword and charges to deliver several cross slashes. Chen dodges the strike once again, leaping into the trees and trying to slash at the man. But the spy avoids the blow, while 2 men watch the fight from a distance, analyzing everything. They think the boy is no match for him, but decide to keep watching. Chen is thrown from the smoke, while the spy says he has taken 2 blows and is still alive. The boy thinks about his instructor, until the spy charges again, only to be blocked by him. But Chen's sword shatters, with the blade getting close to his face. He sees no other choice but to use his energy, which startles the spy. That massive strike causes an explosion in the area, throwing both Chen and his opponent back. But the samurai emerges from the smoke, saying he'll take his life today, preparing for the slash. Chen thinks he'll die today, but a spiritual palm crushes the spy. The boy is impressed and stands up, only to see the spy lifeless. A man who had been watching offers him a place in the Mad Dragon team, extending his hand and introducing himself as Shan, but is quickly interrupted by Shen. She descends from the sky, approaching her student angrily while checking if he's injured. She asks if he's crazy for fighting someone of that level and doesn't even listen to him. Chen wakes up the next day with only a few memories of what happened. He decides to open the door to look for Miss Shen, being in the Mad Dragon army. A soldier behind him says that all candidates and beauties are there. Chen asks where Instructor Shen is, and the soldier sends him to the infirmary. Walking through the camp, Chen opens the wrong door and comes face to face with girls bathing. They scream pervert and throw towels at Chen. The woman in the center asks how bold he is to do that in the Mad Dragon, and the girls start hitting him. Outside, they gather and say anyone caught peeping will end up like him. Miss Shen exits the infirmary, hearing one of the girls wanting to castrate the protagonist. When she's about to hit him, the instructor stops the blow, introducing herself as head of the Secret Service. The pink-haired woman feels offended and wants to punish him. Shen tries to reason with her, but the woman is unyielding. Officer Shan steps in to defend Chen, who makes up a lie, calling him his sworn brother. Chen says he's the girl's uncle in seniority level and didn't do anything. The woman just steps back, while Shen thanks General Lin, who admires his talent. Chen explains he's already healed, walking away with the general. Su Cheng's friends comment that this boy is here and is General Lin's brother, making Cheng angry and wanting to hit him. The instructor walks up the stairs, while the three comment that she's the beauty of the road, and Chen is also interesting, even if only two of them make him cautious. With only 3 names of enforcers, including him, they plan to take Chen's life. Leader Xia on stage orders all contestants to step forward, announcing that the test will have 3 rounds and only the top 3 will pass. Chen notices 2 of them are strong, and Xia says they must cross the pristine forest within 1 hour to reach the goal. Following the map route, they must remember the dangers, and all soldiers take the books and agree with Xia. She announces the start of the training, dispersing everyone. Chen runs through the forest, thinking the first round is based on speed, and the others follow the same route. The boy gets excited with this kind of training as he continues his path. Inside a room, Xia comments that everyone chose the same route, while another general says to let them fight. Chen runs through the forest until a stealthy dagger comes his way. He dodges and follows his route, striking the attacker. With the man down, Chen continues his route, telling him to go home. Facing the minefield, Bai approaches, and Chen notices his strength. Bai says he should go ahead to scout the area, and the protagonist teases him about not knowing how to proceed. Irritated, the pink-haired man charges at Chen with his fist, colliding spiritual energy, until another strike comes from behind, causing another explosion there. Chen tells them to come out, as Su curses them and throws a grenade, saying he'll take him to hell. In the final area, the officers wonder why no one has arrived with 10 minutes left, until an explosion occurs, drawing everyone's attention. A girl approaches, grabbing the flag and informing Examiner Xia. The instructors comment that she's young and in the celestial realm. Then Bai and Su approach, grabbing the flags at the same time. The instructor wonders where her student is. He suddenly comes out of the smoke, charging at Su with an energy punch. Bai thinks no one could survive that explosion, and as Chen's strike approaches, the instructor blocks it. She makes the boy step back, while even his peers are impressed by his strength. Chen says those bastards tried to take his life with a grenade, and Xia says she'll investigate. Chen interrupts, ordering them to check it carefully since they touched her people. She then grabs Chen's wrist and takes him to the infirmary, treating his injuries. She says she will help him with his revenge until a soldier enters the room, informing them that General Lin has invited his brother. On the way to the general's room, the pink-haired girl rushes at him with a knife. She warns that this time she will castrate him. Chen dodges all her strikes, thinking she was at the celestial realm. The girl tries to slash again, and Chen avoids it, grabbing her wrist and pinning her to the ground. She screams for him to let her go, while the protagonist slaps her a few times to annoy her. The girl cries after being hit several times, while Lin Shan watches from afar, angry that he is hitting his daughter. But he says he wanted to meet him to see how he regenerated. With no one calling him, Chen decides to return to the infirmary, where Shen says she has things to do and must leave. The young man notices a secret service card, which his master snatches from his hand, irritated. Chen realizes it is the same name as his master, and after talking for a while, the instructor gets ready to leave and tells her student he must win. She kisses his forehead, and as she walks away, the young man calls her 7th master. She says she will handle it, while Chen reflects that she truly was his master. But he had been flirting with her all this time. The next day, the second test is about to begin. Instructor Xia appears behind the protagonist and says that Su broke the rules and was disqualified. But the seventh master suggested he continue competing and might lose his life. Chen says he understands what she means, while Xia steps away, calling everyone. She explains that this test is a progression system, with 6 competitors going to the end of the rope, defeating any opponent on the way. Choosing 2 at random, they would face each other back to back. Both geniuses think no one stands a chance against them, and Chen notices their rivalry. Xia says the first pair is Bai and Liu Yu, and both climb onto the rope. Bai taunts his opponent, making him prepared to punch with energy. But the pink-haired man simply kicks him, throwing his opponent off balance. The guards announce that Bei Yutang has won the first round, and the second match is Su versus Zhou Feng. Chen reflects that only he and Su remain, provoking his opponent. A friend of Su warns that the man they asked for has already arrived, and as soon as Chen leaves the camp, he will lose his life. Su manages to knock down her opponent, winning the fight. Xia announces that Chen and Su should fight now, and both climb onto the rope. The protagonist says he is excited to take his life, while Su only thinks he will surrender quickly. The protagonist moves in to punch, and Su surrenders, but is ignored. Hanging by a thread on the rope, he repeats that he surrendered. But Chen steps on his hand to make him fall. He says no one would care if he died in an accident and charges his energy to strike. But Su shouts, admitting defeat, making everyone hear it. Su and Bai think about how cowardly he is. The protagonist says he will let him go today, but will still take his life. Xia tells the 3 that the round is finally over. The 3 winners have become law enforcers, but she warns that the third round will choose a captain, with a tournament among them, where the first match will be Chen versus Bai. The protagonist says this is their chance to fight. Enraging Bai, who charges with a fire kick, easily blocked by Chen. The audience thinks the young man managed to block Bai, while from the smoke, the man emerges with an energy sword, again blocked by Chen, who channels energy into his hand and throws Bai far away. The onlookers comment that Chen only needed 2 blows to defeat him, so Xia announces his victory, and the second match, with Chen against Xue. The girl says she is interested in first place, and asks him to enlighten her, releasing pink energy toward the young man, which Chen simply dodges and shatters with his energy. The girl thinks this is bad and is thrown far away, but it doesn't seem like she's been defeated, as she launches one last strike to hit Chen when he drops his guard. The young man simply strikes the sword, breaking it easily, while Sui admits defeat. Chen steps forward, saying first place is his. Xia announces his victory and his title as captain, also saying he can choose one of the departments. In the future, if they encounter problems, they must follow Captain Chen. Both confirm the information, and Bei thinks he should bow his head. Chen looks at his certificate, but notices the pink-haired girl approaching and ordering his capture. The boy runs away from her, asking for help to stop it. From a distance, Commander Li watches the fight, ordering to keep an eye on him when the opportunity comes. Chen is in a forest, saying that now, outside the camp, he can do anything. But some knives come flying, trapping the boy with ropes. Su's group approaches, saying they'll take his life. Chen breaks free from the ropes, saying that now he'll finish Su, who orders his subordinate to attack. The protagonist isn't even interested in the strike, simply blocking it with his energy, shattering the man's sword and slashing his chest, forcing him to retreat. That subordinate tells his master to run because he's no match, and the other servants of Su protect him while the master flees. Chen laughs at this, charging forward and cutting everyone down until reaching Su for the final blow. The punch sends Su flying, while Chen says he won't escape. Su pulls out his phone, calling his father for help, but Chen cuts off his hand. That hare tries to run, but the protagonist separates his head from his body and smashes his phone. A subordinate informs Patriarch Su that his son had mobilized dozens of people, but the leader only orders them to find the phone. At the airport, the members of the Su family are investigating what happened to Su Cheng. The protagonist thinks they move fast, until he hears some girls talking about the party. He decides to stay there, eating some grapes while waiting for the Su family. A girl hurries by, bumping into a glass and tearing her dress. She complains that the protagonist did this and tells her husband to break his leg. Chen says he doesn't want trouble, and then the members of the Su family arrive. The couple decides they'll deal with him at night, then walk away. Su Cheng says he'll find the one who killed his son and orders everyone to hunt him down. Chen walks around, saying that he came to him himself, making the master angry. The protagonist says he tried to take his life in the forest, which enrages Master Su, who draws his fire sword. That slash is easily avoided by the protagonist's sword, who then forms an energy palm, forcing the Su family leader to kneel with no way out. He uses all his energy against Chen, launching a powerful attack, but the boy simply dodges, appearing behind him. Then he unleashes his piercing finger technique, sending Su flying. In the air, he draws his sword, sending some projectile attacks at the protagonist, but Chen creates energy waves that hit Su, making him spit blood. Chen jokes that he's nothing and asks if the old man still wants to take his life, but Su says no, begging for forgiveness and to be spared, while Chen simply accepts, introducing himself as the master of Dongling. Everyone recognizes the man's title. The boy says he'll destroy the Su family if they touch him again, and also mentions what happened earlier. Su assures him that the Tang family won't do anything, and the protagonist turns to head home. In the city of Dongling, he gets out of his car, missing his master. Baiming greets his young master, saying that a strange woman made his master feel unwell. Chen opens the door angrily, coming face to face with Huang, who runs to hug him, saying she found her husband. Violet says he's an idiot with several girls chasing after him. Huang says her husband did something shameful to her. Chen tries to explain to his master, but she grabs his ear, telling him to say what happened. Huang interrupts, saying he saw and touched her body. The protagonist feels embarrassed and asks the young lady to leave. His master asks what happened and tells him to tell the truth, so he explains that he had to use acupuncture on her and she should believe him. Qin stays angry and twists the protagonist's ear harder, but she says she trusts him and warns him not to enter her house if it happens again. However, she's sad that he made some mistakes, and since the market is competitive, the two must go to the Zhang family. Chen decides to call the young lady to solve the problem, but the girl says she's busy. 2 hours later, in front of the Zhang residence, Wushewang tells the fatty that it's a delicate matter. On the way, they meet Chen, who asks what happened. The girl explains that her family was attacked during a jewelry transport. Some people lost their lives, and they are here to find the culprit. The boy tells the girl not to worry, as no one will bother her or the Zhang family. Then he says he'll help them, heading to the car. Wushewang says the Zhang family violated the agreement not to expose their family, and they go there. Entering the family's house, the young lady leads the way to the second uncle. Chen notices there are many people and it looks like a party, until he senses a murderous aura coming from the bushes. An old man thanks the young lady for coming, being the master of the Zhang family. But someone suddenly opens the door, and a man from the Wang family suggests she join him. The young lady says he is the one behind it all, but the man tells her not to do business in Yunzhou. Chen insults him for being deceitful and introduces himself as his father. This angers the man, who orders his subordinates to take his life. But Chen draws his energy sword, cutting off the servant's arms. This impresses the Zhang family members watching from afar. Wang Kun thinks he is so arrogant even while being at the Yuan gathering realm. That man charges at the protagonist, who easily blocks and repels the attack. Wang Kun crashes into the wall, and the onlookers are surprised he lost. The man calls his servants, who draw their weapons. Chen doesn't even care, making them fire while he covers himself with defensive energy. But there is a weapon behind them. Even with Chen trying to defend, it hits Miss Zhang. The protagonist is shocked and approaches her, sealing her pressure point. With the girl in his arms, he says he will take the lives of those people. The assassins are suddenly struck by Wushewang's uncle. Chen says she has been hit and needs treatment. The second uncle of the Zhang family gets angry upon seeing his niece injured, ordering everyone to be killed. Chen walks with the girl, telling her to hold on a bit longer, while using his spiritual energy to heal her, making the girl feel it in another way.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.